Thank you very much for the introduction. It's a delight to be addressing you here. Also, a big hello to everybody attending online. So I'll be presenting the talk. I'm a researcher. The other three are on the technical side, and I'm proud to be presenting on their behalf, and will try to answer the questions as best I can. So what's this idea about the Bazaar and the data garden? The idea is that, there's different ways to introduce a language archive. So I could simply say that it's live online. We worked long and hard on the web interface, especially in 2021. So it should work on a laptop, also on a mobile device, on a smartphone. And basically, in a sense, that's the real thing. That's where the things live. But addressing an audience of people who design archives and who use them, I thought we'd try to give it a twist and try to place ourselves inside a bigger landscape. So it's classic work by Raymond that contrasts two ways of designing software. One is you design the cathedral, you build the cathedral, and finally you open up the cathedral and people admire it. And the other one is the Bazaar style that would be more bottom-up, with people discussing. And it's not so easy to place our collection in terms of where it stands in relation to that, but I'll still use those two perspectives to see in which ways the Pangloss Collection stands out as a cathedral by design, in which ways it works like a bazaar or auberge espagnole, as we'd say in French. And finally, move on to the metaphor of the data garden, which has limitations, of course, because speakers aren't carrots and data aren't peas. But still, I think there's a lot of sense in having those ways of thinking of our archives. So the cathedral side is, first, why do we want something centered and top-down and well-organized like a cathedral? It's because we need careful archive design so that we can curb data loss, which is the big aim, right? To reduce the loss of data, like the Coast Guards try to reduce the loss of lives. The rate of loss is staggering, as we all know. This is an average by the Research Data Alliance over basically all the fields of science. And 5% a year is a lot if you come to think about what happens in 10 years, 20 years and more. It affects recordings, but also transcriptions and dictionaries. So we see them disappear around us. And it affects digital files as well as paper and analog tapes. So just having cool stuff on servers at our home institutions or on pages that we maintain is not going to solve the long-term conservation problem for language documentation. Another aspect in which the Pangloss Collection is more on the cathedral side is that it's work by professionals, me not included in there, emphatically, professional archivists, based on demanding principles. So there was early adoption of SGML, which soon moved to HTML and XML and sounded clearly like the best way to go. And we follow hierarchical markup following a fixed structure. So we can discuss that and whether it's good or bad, or what are the limitations basically of having, strictly embedded markup with sentences made up of words, made up of morphemes. But one advantage is that it has been essentially stable over the years. So it's been now about 25 years or so since the web interface went live, and that's good. It's FAIR by design, so it was FAIR before FAIR even existed as an acronym, because we want to be findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. But also, it's more than that. That doesn't include the notion of stability over time. And that's something we definitely want, to have provisions for long-term conservation. So we have stable identifiers, like archival resource keys, that are not for sale easily. First, one has to, prove that yes, there's the work is being done towards long-term archiving. Plus, we have an overlay of DOIs because colleagues said, the archive is not too bad, but we'll start using it when you have DOIs. So it was a kind of given that researchers wanted DOIs. It's also Cathedral-like, maybe most importantly because it's a part of a national setup. So in this sense, we submitted a paper to Language presenting the collection, and they say, make it a cookbook. So how could you do it? But we said, it's not easily replicable in another environment, so people tend to underestimate differences between countries. So the hosting is done by the Cocoon platform, Collection de Corpus Euronumérique, which is a national platform, national infrastructure. So the missions are there, and basically it's all there. And all we do is to act locally so as that data will flow into this platform. And the hosting, long-term conservation is all being taken care of by the platform. So Pangloss, in a sense, is just the name of a sub-collection and a web interface that we work on. This is, I'm not going to go through all of this, but this is to show that this Séverine's doing, that we have some thoughts about Pangloss, which lives in this corner, which is essentially a website. Plus, we make a copy of the metadata file from the Cocoon repository, the warehouse, and we have a local metadata database in MySQL, so it'll respond fast when people like you come in, or me come and consult it. But the important things are on the left side, I would say. There's that the DUIs we get are, we get an infinite number of them. We don't have to pay for them individually, though we do pay a subscription annually. And done through the Institute for Scientific and Technical Information, which is another national platform infrastructure. And the National Computer Center for Higher Education takes in the stuff for archiving and pushes it on to the National Archives. So this is, again, things that we have been seeing happening. Séverine is also in charge of Cocoon, so the bigger repository, as working together with Jacobson. So we have some ties with them, but basically it's happening outside the collection. In terms of funding and personal model, so basically we rely on civil servants and public services. We do not have specific funding. And the lab where I'm based contributes through the participation of three colleagues who are the three co-authors. Séverine Guillaume is an engineer. She's presenting at Interspeech today, so she's active on the research front. And she's sort of half-time on the project since 2010 and basically in charge of it. Her assistant engineer, Léa Mouton, is full-time on the project since last year, and a technician is half-time since 5 years ago. So the future really depends on the sustainability and resilience of institutions at the national level. So fingers crossed, and that's how we position ourselves. So, and also in terms of principles, the Cathedral model is not too bad, that we have those principles that are sort of cathedral-like and very Christian maybe, or religiously tinged at some point, that there's a commandment that thou shalt not lose too much research data. Apologies for people who consider this to be a very inappropriate way of referring to the commandments, holy commandments, but I'm, okay, that's the way I think of things. And opening up research data is basically a return to the ethos of science, that there's not everybody who loses data are, misbehaving or they're doing fraud. But all people doing fraud have good reasons to lose the data or not be able to communicate them. So there's good correlation here anyway. Okay, the Bazaar side is, in a sense, no less important than the Cathedral side, that things are very open and loose. So we have an open definition of corpus, that it's the set of data available on a given language, dialect, call it the way you want. So in case new deposits come in, they enrich the record. So Adige, which is a Northwest Caucasian language, we have sort of heritage data from the 1970s by the late Catherine Paris and René Xel. And recently, heritage speaker from Turkey, Mizane Konuk, deposited new stuff, and so here it's coming in. She also provided the photos, which are cool, which are present-day things. And so the record gets enriched over the years. And so it's not somebody's deposit, it's the Bazaar deposit in the Pangloss Collection. There's also any speech dataset can in principle be deposited. There's no reviewing, and provided it answers the basic requirements on that our National Archive can handle, that it has to be within a certain scope. We can welcome in data that are untranscribed, even if it's just audio, just video. We don't require that people should put in certain amounts of things. So here we have some inuktitut at bottom, and it's got something innovative, that it's got orthography, syllabic, romanized, segmented by morpheme, because that's appropriate for the language. So that's what we're given and what we offer for download. Also, there's a sort of depositor-driven innovation rather than planned innovation that researchers are encouraged to include in their funded projects some contribution to the archive, not just in terms of materials, but also software developments that benefit the collection. So there's a tremendous search engine in the European project by Tanya Nikitina, for instance, and we'd like to repatriate this into the collection over the years because we don't have a proper search engine currently. We have, okay, so that's collaborators helping me doing automatic transcription. So on the right-hand side is a resource that was deposited this summer based on a canvas that was transcribed automatically. So this is a work that is reported in language documentation and conservation, and it's slowly happening. And of course, we want, Séverine is conducting tests to see to what extent other deposits in the Pangloss collection could lend themselves to this sort of treatment so that it could help people manage the massive backlog of untranscribed documents. So I'm into 4 minutes or 3 minutes, I don't know, so I'll go very quickly into this. But in terms of contents, also we are respecting the diversity of formats, but it also reflects the multidimensional diversity, which is also cultural, and that also, again, tends to be underestimated. The diversity of socio-political situations, that means that in different places, people collect different things and distribute them differently, even distribute it to different people, and that's a fact of archiving that we should be very carefully aware of. So the data garden has 2 minutes left, so it'll be short. So why talk about data gardening? People said, oh, it's wonderful, you're a data clinic, and even when things come in on, rolled in or something, you take care of them. But we prefer the data garden because things grow, there's a dynamic. And so progressive archiving for us is a wonderful principle that we happily embrace. Connecting to research is something that we want to stay in touch with. It's not the most fashionable right now in language archiving, where the focus is on, giving back to the communities, and that comes and goes, and it's all super important. But the connection to research, which historically we have been strong on, is something we want to keep, and connecting to NLP without, of course, losing touch with anyone. That's very important. So I'll rush towards the end. I have 2 slides left. I think the Pangloss collection, it doesn't have any committees or steering committees, scientific committees. It really works as a space where people can come with that data, talk to Leah, talk to Séverine, Balthazar, and usually come back saying, I wish I'd started earlier because it was so interesting discussing with passionate people and learning so much from professionals. So we wish to be a space where also legal and ethical topics can be discussed meaningfully, not just as a chore, but as, having the law and ethics as allies in our work forward. A space for learning about open science tools. So even if time is pressing, we're here in Germany, so we could mention Ada und Sangemann, ein Märchen über Software, Skateboards und Himbeereis, which is something I really recommended read. They did a wonderful French translation because it's Creative Commons license and they could do that. And it encourages people to find freedom and autonomy, which does matter, which is so precious. And it means work, but it's cool when you're in good company, as this And I can come back to this in the questions space. Last but not least, so this is the last slide. So how are we doing? Are we happy with what we do, or just can archiving become generalized? And the news is reasonably good. So without forcing people into a pipeline saying, as a member of Lacito, thou shalt do this or that, there's progress for PhD students and for heritage materials, and also that transcriptions do come in, not just raw data. So I should stop now. Thank you for your attention and welcome your questions.
Thank you so much, Alexis. So does anyone have any questions for our speaker today? Yes.
That's Hugh Peterson. Good
Hi,
to see you.
Thank you. I'm always amazed at your work. I just have a question, like with Tanya Nikotina's project and such, they did a lot of work in Elan. And so I've been looking at the archive, and I understand that the transcriptions available for download are not in an Elan format. They're in a different XML format. It seems that there's a translation process from Elan into the Cocoon environment's native format. But what happens to the original document? Is that also retrievable, the Elan file, or is that?
Yeah. Oh, excellent question. So no, we don't throw files away. We tend to avoid doing that. So basically, what happens is that people work in Elan. It's a huge majority of people. I'm not one of them, but that's how things happen. Then Séverine, Guillaume has scripts for lossless conversion. It can be hard because Elan allows you to do lots of things, and so she gets lots of different things. But once the script is ready, then she can update that. So an update more than every 6 months would be a lot of work for her, but it works that people update their files, and then she can extract the information again. Then she keeps the files. It's the same as in the AL archive, that you can have a Microsoft Word file as the source file, and you can archive it, certain types of doc files, docx files, but what you'll get is the PDF. You don't have access as of here and now to all the files. I think through the Cocoon repository, you can access the EAF files, but they're archived anyway. But the collection, so that people can browse from any smartphone or browser and not download Elan and everything, we do have online browsing only for the XML format from which Séverine, sorry, it's a bit roundabout, but I think you have the information.
Yeah, that was very interesting, and I'm also always very amazed about the quality of the interface, so I really like it. I was wondering regarding the mobilization of things, and you mentioned NLP, right? So I had a look at the Pangloss interface some months ago, and I was looking for those nice little XML where you can turn on and turn off those several tiers. And I'll look at this language, and I found 20 JPEGs. And I looked at this other language, and I found some audio files. So it was a little bit difficult for me to actually locate the stuff I was interested in. And you also said you don't do review, right? So basically anybody can just put stuff in the garden and throw it over the fence, and then it resides in the garden. So I was wondering whether you could comment on curation, and maybe you could have something like overlays or so, or communities where you can say this is curated, and if you're looking for NLP, go here. If you're looking for audio, go there. If you're looking for highly specialized yada yada, go here. Okay,
can I have 1 minute, Julia? Yes. Or okay, I'll try
yes,
to
you have 1.5 minutes.
1.5 minutes. Okay, super. So basically, NLP people don't look at the interface or find it agreeable because they want to rip things quickly and don't want to scrape websites downloading individual files. And we hadn't thought of that because we thought it's good and linguists like it, so we're done. So we have deposits in the Hugging Face Transformers space for data sets, which is where people want to plug stuff. And it needs a bit of maintenance because technology changes over years or months or weeks. And so we're doing that for a couple of corpora. And the next question, so nobody can throw anything over the fence because it's not a self-deposit area. So people do get in touch with Séverine, and then she goes back with emails saying, we want the metadata. We're not going to take data without metadata. That's the big thing. But any data is better than no data, is what we think in terms of endangered languages. And also there's the idea of progressive archiving, that people, start the process, and then as they think, why isn't there orthographic tier for my language? Well, your ball's in your court, and this is the way to do it. So yes, that's the Bazaar thing, and it's a problem for users that they don't get something neat and a sort of French garden. No, it's not a French garden. It's a very English garden. And going to continue like that. It's set to continue that way.
Okay. Thank you so much, Alexis, and for your co-authors. Thank you.